going to be a really so that's one good thing to know. We are recording this meeting, it can be shown again on our website for folks who weren't able to attend it live. We'd like to tell you that up front, just in case you're uncomfortable being recorded. But thank you so much for coming. This is going to be a real great dive down into a detail of operating a small business where you might be dealing with patents and things like that. And I'm really glad to see that there's been interest in that because it's showing there's a lot of makers and creators and idea people in Maryland, which we all knew. So thanks for showing up. So I'm Nick Rudolph. I'm the Baltimore Regional Director of Maryland Capital Enterprises. We are a nonprofit, and our goal really simply is to help people and entrepreneurs start, sustain, and grow small businesses in Maryland. Our focus is on the Eastern Shore, Baltimore City, Baltimore County, and Anne Arundel County. We've been doing this for a little bit over 20 years, offering great technical assistance, everything from one-on-one counseling when the pandemic isn't happening, classroom sessions, and of course webinars like this one, and our online MCE online training center. We are also a women's business center with an office currently operating in Salisbury with a resource library, an opportunity to talk to some counselors, and in the not too distant future we'll be opening up a in-person women's business center in Baltimore. Right now all of our women's business center activities in Baltimore are virtual. But we are able to help really any women, men, anybody who wants to can come on in, get counseling, learn about running a business plan, figuring out cash flow projections, looking over leases, really anything you need to start or grow your business. But today we're here talking specifically about patents and this is really, really exciting because this is an opportunity for you to really create something and make sure that it remains yours. But I'm also really excited to introduce our guest speaker, Jim Peterson. He's the Vice President and Business Banking Relation Manager at M&T Bank. In that role, he focuses on owner-occupied and investment commercial real estate purchases and refinances, startup financing, and it's really important to know that M&T Bank is the #1 small business administration lender in the Mid-Atlantic. Works with equipment purchases, working capital, lines of credit, general deposit services, treasury management, and merchant services. Prior to M&T Bank, he served at the Baltimore's Mayor's Office of Minority and Women-Owned Businesses as the outreach coordinator for the Baltimore City Small Business Resource Center. And I should mention that he volunteers with us as a loan committee member up here in Baltimore, giving these great presentations and just generally is a great asset to the small business community. We're really fortunate to have him with us today. Also, make sure to stay tuned after the presentation. We'll be able to make the slides available, and I'll jump in to talk about our evaluation forms, which help us figure out the next programs that we'll be doing. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Jim.
Wow, thanks, Nick. I'm gonna have to take you with me. That was awesome. I had to hire you. Thank you.
I know. I want him to do it every time now. How exciting!
Yeah, that was amazing. I'm gonna have to take Nick on the road with me.
My degree is in being a radio DJ. I never did it.
Oh, it sounds like it. It sounds like it.
Yeah. Awesome.
So, thank you. I'm very happy to be here. Like Nick says, I work for M&T Bank, currently with M&T Bank, former business owner. So many of the things that you folks are going through that are on the call tonight, I've been there. So as we walk through this, I want you to remember that this is for you, right? The reason why we do this is for you. So if you have questions, if I mention something, one of these slides comes up and I go through the slide and you have questions, you don't understand it, or you just want some more information, jump in here, let us know, put something in the chat. Lisa will let me know. When I start the presentation, I can't always see the chat, but Lisa will let me know if there's a question that you have, and we'll try to get those questions answered for you. But I want you guys to participate. We have a small group here, and again, this is for you, so I want you guys to participate. I don't want to sit here for an hour just talking, going through slides. I'm going to tell you right now that I'm no PowerPoint wizard, right? I'm not going to dazzle you with some fancy PowerPoint slides. There's not going to be things popping in and out, music playing and all that stuff. We got some basic slides here. It's all about the information, and it's all about hopefully answering the questions that you have. So please don't just sit there and not participate. I need you guys to participate. And one of the things I want to do early on is ask you who you are and what your business is. So we can get into the program, but as you'll see in our agenda, the first thing on there is introduction. So I know some of you may not want to come on camera, but in a minute, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself. I want to know what kind of business you're in, and I want to know what your expectations are for tonight so I can be sure to meet them. All right, and we don't leave anybody out. So let's go ahead and get started. Can I share my screen, Lisa?
Oh, I forgot I was muted. You should be able to. Let me just double check here. Try it now.
Okay. All right.
Sorry, I meant to check that. We were chatting earlier.
All right. So can everybody see my screen?
Not yet. We just see you.
I don't see it yet either.
I think it's coming. Hopefully. You clicked on share screen, right?
Nope, I gotta
There it
go
is.
back.
It's coming up
It's
now.
coming. There we go. There we go. And then if you want to make it bigger, or you can leave it like that, that's up to you.
How about that?
That looks good. Everybody see that okay?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, so what we're going to talk about tonight is IP, right? Well, we're going to leave it at patents, trademarks, and copyright because I'm throwing something later in there. You'll see how that goes. Intellectual property is what we're covering, right? But a lot of people don't know what that is, so I'll keep it simple. Patents, trademarks, and copyrights, right? There's actually 4, but the 4th one, I'll tell you what that is later. In fact, you'll see that there's going to be a test and hopefully somebody can answer that for us. But before we get started, I need to do this disclaimer because some of this is legal and I want to make it very clear that I'm not an attorney. So the information provided herein should not be construed as legal advice. I am not an attorney, nor am I associated with any law firm. I do not provide legal advice. The information provided has been assembled through my own experiences and research and is in no way related to or should reflect upon the views or opinions of my employer or those partnering or sponsoring this workshop. The content is provided as is, no representations are made. If you need legal advice, contact a lawyer. All right, so are we clear? Good, let's move on. So the agenda, again, like I mentioned, we're going to start with introductions because I want to know who you are and I want to know what your expectations are and make sure that we answer your questions, right? If we know what kind of business you have, I can kind of relate to your business and what you might be looking at, the issues you may have with your business as we go through this program. So we're going to talk about what IP is, intellectual property. You might hear folks talk about IP this and IP that. That's intellectual property. And every business has some, right? So don't think that, well, I might not have any intellectual property. Every business has intellectual property. And we'll go through with some of those, what those are, some of the obvious ones, and then there's some not so obvious ones that you might not be familiar with. There's 4 kinds of IP, and you might be saying, well, the title only says patent, trademark, and copyright, right? That's the 3 main ones, but there's a 4th one, and in my opinion, it's the most important one, and I'll share with you what that is. And then we're going to do some questions. If we don't answer all your questions as we go through this program, then at the end, we'll try to have some time to answer all your questions. And then there's going to be a test, because there's always a test. That's just how we do it, right? So intellectual property. Intellectual property is a unique work or invention right? IP has value and should be protected. Like I said, every business has IP, has intellectual property, and it should be protected. There are four primary ways to protect your IP, as I mentioned a couple of times now, and we'll get into that. Three of them are in the title. So first, I want to ask everybody to introduce themselves. Again, I can't see the chat, but I can call you out, or you can unmute, and you can tell me what your name is, what your business is, and what your expectations for tonight are. Or I can call you out. So however you want to do it. So, or I can ask Lisa to call you out at least.
You can go first, since I'll volunteer, since I didn't get to introduce myself.
Okay,
I'm Lisa.
please.
I'm the director of the Women's Business Center at Maryland Capital Enterprises here in Salisbury. And we are happy to be working with Jim again on some of these classes. I've learned a lot from him and glad he is here sharing his expertise. I don't own a business, but I help people that do. So I'm excited to learn more about this. Thanks, Jim.
Great, thank you, Lisa. Anybody next? You want to unmute? Tell us who you are and what your expectations are. Alicia, please.
I'll go. Yes. So my name is Alicia Boyd. I am the co-owner of Humble Hearts Catering and Events. And really my expectation tonight is just to learn as we're going into this next season of our business and growth. I just feel like any information is always good information of this caliber, so that we can just tuck it away and we'll have it when we need it.
Excellent, excellent, thank you. I think I know you, don't I, Alicia?
I'm not sure. You might know
You work with Juan?
You might know my business partner.
You work with Juan?
With, I'm sorry, who?
Juan.
I don't know a Juan.
Okay, I'm sorry. Well, welcome for being here this evening. Thank you for joining us. Tamikia?
It's Tamika.
Hey, Tamika.
How are you?
Going well.
I'm going to turn my video on.
Okay, now I know Tamika.
Yes, you do know me. I've had a couple of courses with you so far, so everything has been awesome. But I'm Tamika Broughton. I just started a business earlier this year, so I'm kind of new, but I do know what intellectual property is. So I kind of wanted some tips because my current job, I teach and I do consulting on the side. So I wanted some tips and tricks and things that I might not know before I go to a lawyer. So I do a lot of video content. So I was hoping I would hear some information with video content, especially using it on some learning platforms. So I'm excited to be here. I do know a lot about intellectual property as being an educator. So yes, I just want to get some more tips to apply that to the business side of it.
Great, thank you for sharing. And that's why we do these workshops, because we want to give you all the information we can before you go spend that money, right? There are certain things you need to spend money on, right?
Yes.
And so we'll give you all the information we can, and then if you still need to contact an attorney, because I'm not an attorney, I think I made that clear, then you do that if you have to, right? All right, Ashley, can you share with us, please?
Hello, everyone. My name is Ashley Newman, and I'm a registered nurse, and I want to start. I'm really new. I just want to start a business doing holistic services, and maybe having products. And so, my expectation is just to gain as much knowledge as I can, especially about trademarking, which I know some other business owners who went through some of the process. So I would just like to learn more.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Thank all of you for sharing. Happy to have you here. So again, most of you know what intellectual property is. That's awesome. One of the key words in IP is unique work, right? People are inventing things all the time, but there's a lot of duplicates. So your work has to be unique. And if you're inventing something that's already invented, you have to change it in such a way that makes it unique, right? Or you have to use it in such a way that makes it unique. And as I mentioned, all businesses have intellectual property, right? Many people think, well, I didn't invent anything. I don't have intellectual property. I didn't write a book. I didn't write a movie script. I didn't invent a phone, right? These things are obvious things that you might want to protect. But sometimes it can be just a technique that you have, right? So if you're a caterer and you make your cakes in a certain way that's different from the way other people make their cakes, that's IP, right? If you bread your chicken before you fry it in a certain way, that's IP. The way that Popeyes breads their chicken sandwich that made such a big fuss last summer. It's all in the way their breading is, the contents of their breading and how it's breaded and the crunchiness and all that stuff. That's intellectual property, right? And you need to protect that. And we're going to talk tonight about ways of protecting that. We're going to talk about 4 ways that you can protect that. If you're a hairstylist and you curl in a certain way, that's intellectual property, right? Only you can do that. That has value. And when it comes time to value your company, you have to consider that. A lot of people just look at, well, how much money do I make? What are the items that I hold? What's my inventory? And they put a value on all those tangible items. But the fact that you have skills, or people who work for you have skills that nobody else has. If you're a caterer and you're a cook, you might not be the cook. You might be the person who owns the business, but you might not be the cook. But your cook has these certain skills. You studied at a certain place, or she studied in Paris, and they have these skills. That's intellectual property, and you have to protect that, right? You can't give that away. What makes it valuable is the fact that it's something that nobody else can do, and that you take every measure to protect it, right? Because if you're giving it away, then there's no value, right? So you have to protect it. The law is established to protect you from damages. So in order to lay claim to someone stealing your idea, you have to be able to show damages. And again, we're going to go through that. So number one of the ways to protect your intellectual property is something that most people are probably familiar with. It's called a patent, right? A patent is an exclusive right granted by the US government for a unique invention or development. Again, there's that unique. It has to be a unique invention, right? Because you do a patent search, and if you do a patent search and somebody else has already come up with that, you have to prove that what you have come up with is different from what's already available. And a lot of times that's very hard to do because people have been inventing things for a long time. And there's a lot of products out there, and they're already patented. And as we're going to talk about later, some of them aren't patented, but they're still protected because use and possession is still 90% of the law, right? So you can claim something just based on your use of it. If you created it and you use it, in fact, that's part of the law. You have to be using it, right? You can't invent something and stick it in a drawer and hide it. Part of the reason why the government wants to protect your ideas is because they expect you to use it, and they don't want anybody, harming your ability to make money from the use of your idea. That's how the law is set up. So there's 3 different types of patents. Can anybody name 3 types of patents? Anybody in the chat, or you want to log?
Is it one a utility patent?
One is a utility patent.
Okay.
Yes. Anybody name the other 2? So number two is a design patent. Right, so you have utility patent and you have design patent. And those two, most people can get, with a little thought, you might, Tamika probably would have came up with design patent. Anybody who watches Shark Tank probably would have at some point heard of utility patent and design patent. But the third one, a lot of people don't know about. The third one is called a plant patent. Right. And, prior to, say, 10 years ago or so, it was really obscure for somebody to patent a plant. Right. I mean, it's been happening for hundreds of years, but most people would not and cannot relate to a plant patent. But now, with cannabis out here and legal in many states, you can see how a plant patent could come into play, right? If you crossbreed a plant of cannabis and come up with your own strain, that could be a very valuable intellectual property, right? And you want to patent that and protect it so you get a plant patent on that. Before it was, certain kinds of lilies and roses, you cross-pollinate and you come up with a different kind of rose that hasn't already been created. You can get a plant patent on that rose. Right now, the big patents on plants are obviously cannabis plants, right? So utility patents, it's a patent that covers the creation of a new or improved and useful product, process, or machine. Again, it's very specific. It has to be new. It has to be useful. Again, not something that you're going to create and sit in a drawer somewhere. It has to be a product, a process, or machine. These are tangible items, right? And you get this patent to prohibit others from making it, using it, or selling it, right? That's why you get a patent. These are utility patents, very functional, very tangible. All right, that's a utility patent. So a design patent is exactly what it says. A design patent is a form of legal protection of the uniquely visual qualities of a manufactured item. So it's how it looks, right? It has a distinct configuration, distinct surface ornament, or both. So it could be feel, it can be looks, it can be a combination of looks and feel, it can be colors, it's the design, exactly what it sounds like. Again, it's very obvious. So you can get both. A lot of times, if your invention is a pen, I use this pen as an example. This big pen, you could get a utility patent on the fact that it is a pen and it's a writing instrument. But then you can also get a design patent on the same product because it has a certain color. It's somewhat lucent and it has white writing, right? The design patent would cover the aesthetics, and the functionality would be covered by the utility patent, right? That's how that works. And then we talked about the plant. It's got to be a different kind of plant. Can't be another plant out there like it in order for you to get a plant patent on it. Now, these things aren't free. In fact, they're very expensive. Right? Just to do a search on a patent, and I suggest that you always do a search. If you think you came up with something unique, you want to at least spend the money to do a search. You can start on Google. You can start at the Patent and Trademark Office website. You can do some high-level searches there. You can't do deep dives into the annals of the Patent and Trademark Office. You got to pay for that, and you need an attorney to get certain access for that. But you can do some searching on the internet. Start there. But if you're really serious about patenting something, you want to do a real true search, and you might want to spend the money to do that search just to make sure that you're not infringing on somebody else's patent, because you can build your whole company around a particular product thinking, you got it covered. And then somebody comes in and says, hey, I patented this 20 years ago and you can't do this anymore, right? And shut you down. So you want to do that search. If you don't do anything else, you want to do that search and make sure that you're not infringing on somebody else's patent. All right, so patents have an expiration date. Anybody know what that expiration date is? They don't last forever. Anybody? No? So patents last for 20 years, right? In order to maintain that patent with the Patent and Trademark Office for 20 years, you have to pay maintenance fees. So again, you're going to pay for the search, you're going to pay for the filing, and that filing, depending on your attorney and how sophisticated that patent filing is, how much research you have to do, and drawings need to be made, and it can be anywhere from $2,000 to $20,000, right? Depending on how sophisticated your product or your submission is. So patents can be very expensive, and you can do it yourself. But again, if you don't do it properly, then there's a possibility that you're not going to, one, cover yourself and people can get around your patent. And number two, that you might still be infringing on somebody else's patent, and that could be costly as well if they come after you. Right, so you have to pay the maintenance fee for it to be maintained every 3.5, 7.5, and 11.5 years. Right, and that maintenance fee for a large company is $160. The maintenance fee for a medium-sized company is $80. And for a small business, it's $40, right? So you're paying this every 3.5, 7.5, and 11.5 years. And if you miss that payment at 3.5 years, in the 4th year, you lose your patent, right? So that's why they do those half years. They give you 6 months of grace, right? It's due at 3.5 years. You have until the anniversary of your 4th year to pay it. And if not, then you lose the rights to that patent. All right, so you have to make sure you make your maintenance payments, right? And that's only on a utility patent, right? That's the most common patent. That's what most products are covered under utility patent. So a design and a plant patent, you don't have to pay maintenance fees. All right, so if you come up with a new strain of cannabis plant, you don't have to pay maintenance fees on that. All right. So any questions there? Any questions on patents? All right, I'm gonna give you a couple of examples of some patents you should be familiar with. Number one is the traffic light, right? Anybody who studies African-American history would know Garrett Morgan. Garrett Morgan invented the traffic light in 1923. One of probably the most famous Black inventors is Garrett Morgan. He also invented the gas mask. Right? Something very tangible, the traffic light, very tangible, how it works, how it looks. These things are very patentable and very tangible. The gas mask, again, very tangible. Story that a lot of people aren't familiar with is the board game Monopoly, right? If you look up Monopoly, a lot of places where you look, they'll tell you that a man named Charles Darrow invented the board game Monopoly, but he did not, right? He actually, we're going to say, borrowed it from Lizzie McGee. The actual true story about the Monopoly game is that a woman named Elizabeth McGee invented this board game in 1903, and she called it the landlord's game, right? So a lot of people don't know this, but Lizzie McGee was from Prince George's County, Maryland. And she created this game called the Landlord's Game. Some friends of hers, some mutual friends of hers, and this gentleman, Mr. Darrow, played her game and then told Mr. Darrow about it. And he copied it and then sold it to Parker Brothers in 1935, right? And then she made a claim because she patented it in 1903. But at that time in the 1900s, a lot of people, women didn't get a whole lot of respect. So, they dismissed her for years. She was dismissed as she tried to claim that it was her game. And, she had an uphill battle to prove, but she was able to prove again because these folks actually played her game. They knew it was hers, and they shared it with Mr. Darrow, and they weren't the only ones, right? So eventually, she won her case, and she was awarded $500 from Parker Brothers, 500 whole dollars. Right, they went on to make millions, and Mr. Darrow went on to get royalties from the game that he sold to Parker Brothers, and he made millions. But she was paid $500. But they never gave her the rights. Parker Brothers never gave her the rights to the inventorship of Monopoly. If you look on the board game right now, you'll see that they claim that it was invented by this gentleman, Charles Darrow. Right, so these are the reasons why you want to get patent protection. These are the reasons why you want to, make sure you document not only that you invented or created something, but its use. Again, if she created this board game and kept it in her garage, right, and somehow somebody happened to see it and turned it into a game and sold it to Parker Brothers, she couldn't make claim to this, because she wasn't using it. She wasn't utilizing it. Again, there are no damages. What's the damage? He's making money off of it. You're not even using it, right? So she can't go to court and say, hey, that's my game and he owes me. What does he owe you? You're not using it. She was actually producing this game herself under a different name. She was making money off of it. She was selling it to her family and friends and everybody else who wanted to have one. So she was actually utilizing it the way it was intended to be used, and he stole it and sold it to Parker Brothers. So she was able to win her case and get damages of a whole $500, right? And Parker Brothers was later sold to the Hasbro company in 1991, and they continue to make tons of money off of it till the day. Another patent example is the bottle cap. Right, the bottle cap was invented by William Painter in 1892. William Painter worked for a company. Can anybody guess what company he might have worked for? And again, when you work for a company, those products become the ownership of the company you work for, even if you do it on your own time. If it has anything to do with what they're doing, it's their ownership. I used to be an engineer. My team and I invented several products that the company made millions of dollars. At this point, that was 20 years ago now, so probably billions of dollars on, and our names are on the patents, but they don't belong to us. They belong to the company we work for, right? So this gentleman invented the bottle cap. Any guesses of what company he might have worked for? It's right here in Baltimore. So he worked for Crown, Cork, and Seal, right here in Baltimore, right? So that's a unique type of invention that's local. And this gentleman also created something that goes along with the bottle cap. Any guesses as to what that might be? It's going to be so obvious when you find
Bottle
out.
opener.
The bottle opener. So not only did he invent the bottle cap, but he invented the bottle cap opener. Right? Makes a lot of sense. And that's not all he invented. He invented 80 other products as well. He has 80 patents under his name. So he's very inventive. And again, he worked for Crown, Cork, and Seal, made them tons of money off of his inventions. I'm sure he made a good living as whatever tradesman he was, but nowhere near as much money as they made off of his inventions. Right? But that's it. That's how it works. All right. So that's number one, patents. Number two, any questions there on patents? Anybody have any questions on patents? All right. The number two way to protect your IP is trademarks. All right. So a trademark is a symbol, word, design, or color, or combination thereof, used to define a product, service, or company. Right. So A lot of people, when you think trademark, they think logo. So a logo is not a trademark, right? Logo is a logo. It's a symbol that represents your company, but it's not a trademark. But a logo can be trademarked. So you think about the Nike swoosh, right? The swoosh is their logo, but they trademarked that logo. So you can't duplicate it, right? So that's two different things. Although logo is not a trademark, you can trademark a logo, right? So if you create a word, a design, a symbol, like I mentioned before, and you use it, then it's yours, right? You don't always have to trademark. You don't always have to patent things. If you made it and you're using it like that breading on that chicken, if you use it and everybody knows it's yours, you really don't have to protect it because everybody knows it's yours and you're using it in such a way that benefits you. So just use, again, the law is use and occupancy, basically. If you're using it and it's yours and everybody knows it's yours and you're using it the way it was intended to be used, it's yours. The law says it's yours, right? But if you need to protect it thoroughly under the government, then you need to apply for a trademark if it happens to be a design or how you define a particular product. Right. So in most cases, when people come to me and say, should I trademark my name? In most cases, I would say no. Right. I get people all the time that say, I'm opening up a restaurant. I'm going to call it, Jim's Pizza. I don't want nobody else to call their store Jim's Pizza. First of all, that's so vague that you'll never get a trademark for that because there's 3 billion gyms, right, in the world. Ask me how I know. There was always 3 other gyms in every class that I was in, right? So, first of all, it has to be so unique that it's worthy of trademarking. And then you have to prove that by somebody else using the same name that it's causing you damage, right? So if you have Jim's Pizza in Maryland and somebody in California has Jim's Pizza, the fact that they have a store named Jim's Pizza, how is that damaging you? Right? You have to prove that the fact that they're using it is damaging your shop over here. Now, if you get as big as Apple and people are using your name, then that's a different story. But if it's just you and your small shop here in Maryland, chances are you really don't need to trademark or cover your name in that way. That's up to you, and I'm telling you not to. I'm just saying that you really have to evaluate the chances of somebody using your name and causing you damage, right? That's what it's all about, causing you damage. So some examples of trademarks that everybody should be familiar with is Apple, right? Apple Inc. Apple Inc. trademarked Apple, the name Apple. Now, Apple has been around forever, right? As old as the English language, there's been an apple, something called an apple. But what Apple trademarked is a technology company called Apple, right? So that no other technology company can call itself Apple, right? That's what they cover. That's what their trademark covers. Now, I know a lot of companies named Apple. As a contractor, there's these sunrooms. There's a sunroom company called Apple Enclosures, right? I used to own a flooring company, and we used to do floors for a dealership called Apple Ford, right, over in Columbia, right? So there's other companies called Apple, but there aren't any other technology companies called Apple because they've protected it. So that's how that works. You can trademark a phrase like Capital One trademark, what's in your wallet. You see all the commercials say what's in your wallet. This is a phrase that Capital One trademark to be used in their advertising, right? So for a credit card, they don't want anybody in the finance space to be able to use what's in your wallet, right? Credit cards go in your wallet. Now you can say what's in your wallet if you're talking about something else, But as it relates to a financial product, you know, nobody else can use that phrase, what's in your wallet, without paying royalties to Capital One, right? They were not first person to use that phrase, but they did protect it to relate to their type of product, right? Another very famous phrase, I don't know if there's any boxing fans on here, but Michael Buffer has this phrase, and he says, "Let's get ready to rumble." Right, he started saying that, it was his catchphrase. Whenever the big fights came on, he would say, "Let's get ready to rumble." Right, that's his thing. He trademarked it, and if anybody says that in a public space right now, you have to pay him royalties. Right, so that's what trademarking can do for you. Another very famous one is Kleenex by Kimberly Clark. So in 1924, Kimberly Clark invented the Kleenex. Right, and he did such a great job at marketing this that even till today, when people need a tissue, you'll hear a lot of people, especially older people, say, "Pass me a Kleenex." All right, rather than "pass me a tissue," they say, "Pass me a Kleenex," because they market it so well that it sticks in your head, and that's what we associate with. It's like Xerox copy, right? Xerox did such a good job with promoting the fact that they make copiers, that when you think about copies, you think about Xerox. When you think about tissues, you think about Kleenex, right? And anybody else think of any famous trademark items like that we don't even call them by their real names now? We call them by their brand name.
Yep, actually, my uncle used to work for Xerox, and part of his job was whenever a TV show would say, "Could you Xerox something for me?" he'd send the letter and say, "Could you please say copy?"
So wait a minute, he worked for Xerox?
Yep, and they were just, at that point in time, it was I think the 80s, they were really protective of their brand, and they didn't want it used anywhere outside of, specifically where they wanted it.
Wow. Yeah, but they did a great job. They convinced everybody they were Xerox copies.
Yep.
Good example. Anybody else? All right, we'll move on to the third way to protect your property, and that is copyright. Right, so that's a legal right to an original work or authorship in a fixed medium. Right, so that's key, in a fixed medium, because you can't say, "Well, you know what? I had this idea for this great movie about this guy growing up who was a boxer in Philly, and he was losing all his fights, and then one day he fought for the championship and won, and I'm going to call it Rocky." Right, and then the movie comes out, and you say, "Hey, that was my idea." You can't copyright an idea. You have to actually have something physical in some kind of medium, right? It could be a painting, it could be a book, it could be a script that you wrote, but it has to be a physical item. It has to be tangible in order for you to copyright this. You can't say, "Well, I was thinking of that. I've been thinking of that forever." Ask my wife. I told her 20 years ago, right? That's not good enough. That's not good enough. It has to be tangible. So as a creator, you have rights to it if it's tangible, even if it's sitting in your drawer. One of the things that I share with some folks when they have creative ideas, and again, this is not a legal remedy, but if you have a good idea for a product or a service or a script or a movie or something like that, that you want to be able to prove that you had that idea at that given time, right? You want to write this down, type it up, print it out, write it down, make drawings of it, take pictures of it, get something with a timestamp on it. We used to use newspapers. That's really, back in the day, that's what we used to use. But now you got to find something. If you can find a newspaper, great, with a date on it. Put that in an envelope and mail it to yourself. So what that does is two things. One, you put that date inside the envelope with your original work. And two, it goes through the U.S. Postal System and gets a stamp on it, right? Which means that you had to have sent it at that time, on that date, at that time. You have that original government stamp, quasi-government stamp on this product. And then you stick it in a drawer, right? And you hold on to that. If you ever had to prove whether or not you really had that idea for that movie called Rocky that you told your wife about 20 years ago, that's one way of saying, I did have that idea. Now, that's not going to help you sue whoever made the Rocky movie and get damages from it, because what's the damages? You didn't make a movie and they're not taking any money away from you. There are no damages in that case. You're not using it. But if you want to protect an idea, not protect, I'm sorry, that's the wrong word. Not to protect, but to have a way of proving that you had an idea at a certain period in time. You can type it up, put it in an envelope, mail it to yourself, and hold on to it, right? And keep it sealed, never open it. If the day comes where you have to prove whether or not you had it at that particular time, that's one way to help you prove it. Nowadays we have the internet, right? Back in the day, that was the only way we had without going out and getting a copyright, trademark, or a patent. Nowadays, you can create a website, right? You can put a post on social media. They all have date stamps, right? As long as you can go back to that date stamp when you said, hey, I got this idea for this movie about this boxer in Philly who's going to win championship, right? You can go back to that day you posted that and say, look, I told you I had that idea back on this particular date, right? But the key is a date stamp to try to, you don't want to do that with your ideas. If you got original work for a script or an invention, you don't want to put that on the internet because somebody's definitely going to steal it, right? So you don't want to do that. But that's one way. That's one cheap and efficient way of time stamping your idea. All right, some examples of some famous copyrights is the NIV Bible, right? Now, the key word here is NIV, right? It's the NIV Bible. And I say that because the original Bible was not copywritten, obviously. But the newer versions of the Bible are copywritten because it's somebody's idea of what they think the interpretation of the Bible is, right? NIV, so all these different versions of the Bible, they're copyrighted. Another famous one is Star Wars. Like I mentioned, it's a movie. It's also books. It's music. All the music that are in Star Wars movies, all these things are copyrighted. There's over 3,800 copyrights associated with Star Wars. Everything from toys to books and games and clothing items. There's a million of them. Actually, there's 3,800 of them to be exact. And then you have something like UPS brown, right? Now, brown is a color, and brown has been around for forever, right? But what UPS did was they were able to copyright the color of their trucks and their uniform. So what their copyright protects is a package delivery company in this particular brown. So you can't have another package delivery company in this brown. They can't have their uniforms in this brown. They can't have their delivery trucks in this brown. Their logo, the letters UPS, you can't have that brown and be a package delivery company and not infringe on their copyright, right? So that's how copyrights work. They protect that. The M&T logos, you can see in my background, our M&T logo is copywritten the way that you put the M and the T together. Most of our stationaries in a particular green or a couple of shades of green, that combination of the M, the ampersand, and the T, and those green colors are copyrighted by M&T, and you can't use them in the same way that we use them because it's protected. Right. So Tamika talked about video content. So when you go online and you buy these pics online, you're putting together, you're on Canva and you're trying to put together a flyer and you grab a picture from somewhere to make your flyer pop. Those pics are copyrighted. That's why you have to pay to use them. Right now, there's some free content on the internet, and that's free. You can take that all day long. But to get the premium pictures, they are copyrighted, and you have to purchase them. So if you're creating, if you want to grab some video to help you with whatever you're doing to present, whatever it is that you're doing. Again, you can buy some video online, and that's the content that Tamika is going to be creating, right? Whether you're teaching a lesson or you're doing a workshop or you're doing some promotions or whatever it is that you want to do a video of, it's very smart because this is going to go on the internet. This isn't like Jim's Pizza Shop on North Ave, and the only people that's going to see it are the people who can walk by me. You put stuff on the internet, you might want to protect it. Right, you're putting some good content out there that people can use. You might want to protect that because anybody can see that. Now, again, how are you going to know if somebody saw it on the other side of the country and copied it? Who knows? But if they start to affect your business, you want to make sure that you are protected. So that's one of the things. Again, I steer a lot of people away from copywriting, trademarks, and patents. But that's one instance where I would steer people towards protecting their IP, because if you're putting it on the internet, it can be stolen. It can be stolen very easily. So again, you have to weigh those odds. I'm not giving you legal advice. I'm giving you my opinion. All right. So again, copyrighted material must be recorded or written, right? And it has to be a tangible, usable product. You can't protect an idea. Again, you can't say, well, I had this idea for these videos where I'm going to be giving some instructions on this and instructions on that, and they stole it. Remember, Jim, when I took your class, you can't come, you can't go to court and say, yeah, Jim, remember I took your class and told you I was going to do this. That's not good enough. You have to actually do it. You have to actually be trying to make money off of it. And you have to prove that somebody else doing it is causing you damage, right? The fact that you're teaching classes on whatever it is you're teaching classes on, they're doing the same thing. They're stealing your customers. They're causing you damage. You have to prove that. The law puts the onus on you to prove that you have damages. Right? It's not as obvious as well, look, I'm doing it and they're doing it, so they owe me damages. Now, you have to prove it. Again, and it has to be in use. You can't make these videos and never actually post them to the internet, right? And somebody heard about it and stole it and they're posting it to the internet. Now you want to say, well, they stole my idea, but you're not even using it. You have to use it. It has to be in use. Right, and there's two types of copyrights, right? So there's economic rights, and then there's moral rights. And the economic rights, obviously, is what it says: a right for you to receive compensation for what you created, right? Economic rights, you can sell it. The moral rights come in two different forms. One is right of paternity, which means you created it and you can advertise that you created it. I created these videos, I'm posting on my website, I'm letting everybody know I created it, and this is what you can do to pay me to be able to see these videos, right? You have the right to advertise it. And then there's a right of integrity, right? It prevents other people from changing what you've done, right? So somebody might look at your video and copy it, but change it a little bit, right? So that's your right of integrity. And you would say, hey, listen, you're not, you're damaging my brand. You damage my video, you're damaging my brand. Again, you have to prove damage, that what they've done is detrimental to you. In a lot of cases, some people take some things and make them better. Right? If you think about the Monopoly example that we talked about earlier, the board game Monopoly, what that woman was doing with her game was okay, right? She was selling some here, she was selling some there. This gentleman took it, sold it to Parker Brothers. Parker Brothers made it fancy and came up with the car and the dog, right? Had a cute little hat and stuff like that, and commercials and the little pass go guy. Right? So they improved it, right? But it was still hers. So they owe her damages because they took it and they changed it, but it's still the same thing, and she was utilizing it to make money off of it. So they owed her damages, right? So even if you improve it, or if somebody steals your idea and improves it, it's still yours. The fact remains that it's yours and you have rights to it. So any questions up to this point? Copyright examples, trademark examples, patents, anything that we haven't covered that we want to cover? We're up to the fourth one. We're up to the last way to protect your IP. And as I mentioned earlier, in my opinion, this is probably the most important. It's the least talked about, but probably the most important. And the fourth one is called a trade secret, right? It's a confidential device, technique, or formula that adds value to your business. Again, like a copyright adds value to your business, like a trademark is something that, your trademark is something that adds value to your business. A patent, you don't want to patent something that doesn't have value, right? These things have to have value. And it's the fourth and probably the least known way to protect your IP, and everybody has IP. Right. So in the beginning, I gave examples of a hairstylist who does hair in a certain way. You know, those things, she could patent the way that she does this style. You know, some people are short hair specialists, right? They got little tiny curlers, I guess. You know, I'm not a stylist, but they got a certain technique or a certain tool that allows them to do these curls. My wife's nephew was a barber up in Philly, and in Philly, you know, haircuts are religious in Philly, right? So you could spot, if you're from Philly, you could spot a Philly haircut from a mile away, right? We call it the Philly fade, right? You can tell when a man has a Philly fade, and he was like a master of this Philly fade, and he would take the clippers that everybody else uses, and he would modify them in a certain way. Right? Because you buy these things, everybody buys the same ones, they come in certain sizes, but he would modify his to make his fades just right, right? That's his technique, that's his IP, that's something that he does and nobody else does, right? But if he were to patent that, he would have to let everybody know how he does that, because the law, the government and the law states that in order to get full protection, you have to have full disclosure. You have to say exactly what it is that makes what you're doing unique, right? If you have a certain recipe, if you're a caterer and you have a certain recipe that nobody else has, full disclosure means you have to tell people exactly what's in that recipe, exactly how you make what it is that you make, you know, when to put this in, when to put that in, how long to cook it, how long to, you know, how much to put on it, what's in it, you know. Full disclosure, you know, and a lot of people don't want to go through that because they don't want anybody else to know what it is that's in there, you know, what's in their secret sauce, right? They want to keep that secret, and that's called a trade secret. Now, the key to a trade secret is that you have to keep it a secret, right? It can't be a trade secret and you got it hanging on your wall in your office, right? That everybody can see. You can't, again, go after somebody for damages on a trade secret that everybody can see because you got it hanging on your wall, right? It has to truly be a trade secret, and you have to take every precaution to keep it a secret, right? If somebody finds out about it, you have to show that, you know, it's going to cause you harm, right? If somebody found out how to make that Popeyes chicken the same way that they made it, and people are now going to them instead of going to Popeyes, you know, it's causing them damages, and that's what the law is there to protect, to make sure that you're not harmed by somebody stealing that. But you have to prove that, look, we did everything we could to keep this a secret, and somehow they got it, right? You can't put it on your car and drive around the city and say, oh, you know, they stole my idea. No, you have to take every precaution to keep it a secret. How many people are familiar with SpongeBob SquarePants? Anybody watch SpongeBob SquarePants? I'm not a fan. I'm gonna put that out there. I'm not a fan, but I have grandkids and they watch it, and you know, and I'm familiar with it through them. But Mr. Crab has a trade secret, and it's the formula for the Krabby Patty, right? And he goes to great lengths to keep it away from his competitor who's across the way, who's always trying to get this formula, right? But Mr. Crab, again, goes to great lengths. If somehow this other competitor got a hold of this secret, he could make a claim that, you know, he did everything he could to keep this out of the hands of anybody. And somehow this other person got it. But you have to prove, again, it's on you to prove that you did everything you could to make sure that that nobody would get it. So some pretty famous trade secret examples are the Coca-Cola formula, right? So everybody knows Coca-Cola, but the Coca-Cola formula is not patented because they don't want anybody to know how they make it, right? So for years, people have been trying to copy Coca-Cola. And some people think they have, and many people say, you know, over the years, somebody say, oh, I finally figured it out. This tastes just like Coca-Cola, but nothing really tastes just like Coca-Cola. And people have tried forever, and they get close, but nobody has actually figured it out. And that's because they didn't patent it. If they patented it, they would have to have full disclosure, and you would know exactly how to make Coca-Cola. KFC's 11 herbs and spices. One of my first jobs in high school was working for KFC, right? And when you got the spices are in the flour, right? So you never really know what the spices are. You know, you bread the chicken or you flour the chicken, and the herbs are already in there, right? So it's not like you take these 11 things and put it in there, and it's already in there, and that's how it comes packaged in every KFC, and it just says flour. And that's what you use to put on the chicken before you fry it, right? But they go to great lengths. Sometimes you can, you know, if you have some time, Google some of the lengths that KFC is one of the, because the family that runs it are still around. They go to great lengths to protect their formula. It's kind of funny some of the things you read about when you read about how they protect some of these things. And mainly, not only do they not want other people to be able to copy it, but you know, they just don't want their competitors to know how it's done. When I had my flooring company, my partners and I, we had a secret formula for our floors, and we could have patented it, but we didn't want to because we didn't want our competitors to know, right? Everything, especially flooring, is very competitive. And you have to be able to separate yourself. And sometimes the smallest of things can separate you from the next person. Again, it's like being a stylist. You know, a couple of little things that you do is going to separate you from the next stylist. But like being a caterer or a cook or a restaurant owner, you know, the few items that you have that nobody else has, the way that you cook your fish, or the way that you bake that cake. You know, it could be a little thing, but it's what's going to separate you, and you don't want anybody to know that. Right? So that's a trade secret. Another item along the food lines is Twinkies. Anybody familiar with Twinkies? Again, coming from Philadelphia, Twinkies are big in Philly. And the first company I worked for, an engineering firm, we shared a parking lot with Hostess Brands, who makes Twinkies, right? So, Twinkies are unique because Hostess Brands never patented their process for making Twinkies. And it's not because they didn't want anybody to copy it, right? Or they didn't want anybody to know how they did it. The reason why they never patented it is because the names of the chemicals that go into these things are so scary that they didn't want anybody to know it, right? So they never patented it because they didn't want you to know what they're made of. All right, now, you look at these things, they're yellow cake with white filling in it, creamy filling, and it looks delicious. But if you knew what this stuff was made out of, you wouldn't want to eat it. And that's why they never patented it. And that's a story that's told over and over again up in Philly because, again, it's where they're located. So one of the recent examples is Google's search algorithm. So nobody really knows how Google works, right? Except the folks in Google. And they all sign non-disclosure agreements to make sure that they never tell anybody how their algorithm actually works. And it changes. And periodically, they'll change it. So nobody can figure it out. But that's another trade secret. Again, they're not going to patent it or copyright it because they'd have to tell you what it is. So so that's another trade secret that Google has. And a more recent example is the Google search algorithm. People are constantly trying to figure out how it is so they can crack the code and eventually do the same thing that Google does, right? But nobody's figured it out yet. So that's it for your 4 ways to protect your IP. So we're going to move on to questions. If you haven't asked your questions already, are there any questions that you folks have? This is for you. So if you have questions, now's the time. Don't log off and say, "Oh man, I wish I would have asked Jim this," or "Wish I would have asked Jim that," and he didn't cover this part. So now's the time. Any questions? Anything before we get to our test? Because there's going to be a test.
I have a question. This is Ashley.
Yeah. Hey, Ashley.
Hi. If you have a company and the company covers different things, like if you had under your same company, you might do production, you might do catering, you might do consulting. Do you have to trademark each individual sub-company under your big umbrella company?
Well, again, that depends. What is the likelihood that somebody's going to steal it and cause you damages? So if you're Ashley Newman's holistic services, and then you're going to have Ashley Newman teas and Ashley Newman yoga and Ashley Newman books, right? What's the likelihood that somebody is going to steal Ashley Newman teas and cause you damages? That's what you have to consider. But the answer to your question is yes. If you think everything that you have is worth protecting, then you have to protect each one, right? You can't just, you can't protect Ashley Newman Holistic Services and then everything under that company is protected. There's no blanket protection. You have to protect each one. But before you do that, you have to ask yourself, what is the likelihood that somebody's going to steal the name of one of these? And if they do, will that cause me damages? Right, is that clear?
Yes, thank you so much.
All right. Because the law is all about making you whole. Right, so you have to show damages. You have to show, and you have to be specific. If you're selling your Ashley Newman holistic teas and somebody else copied maybe your packaging or your name or the way you sell your teas or what you call your teas, and they're doing the exact same thing, you have to show that, all right, I've been selling these for 5 years and I make so much a year. They started selling theirs back in December. And since they started selling theirs from December to now, I'm down 30% revenue, right? So the damages are 30%. The law would look at that and say, yeah, that does look like hers. Yeah, she did steal her name. The packaging is the same. She's been doing hers for 5 years, and this is the kind of money she made every year. And then as soon as they started selling theirs, which looks similar and sounds similar and acts similar, she started losing revenue. So yeah, we're going to give her a reward based on that 30% damages. Now that doesn't mean that they're going to give you that 30%. It's going to be based on that. They might say, all right, the damages are 30% of her revenue. Let's give her 10 times that. All right, that's up to the law. That's up to the judge to determine what your true damages are. Because now you're damaged. Right, this person is already out there. It's not just that this last year that they've been selling this product. It's the years ahead, right? So you can get a cease and desist on them and they may not be able to sell it anymore, but now you're already damaged. So the law is going to look at what those damages are and then give you a reward based on those damages. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? All right. I don't know where we are on time. We okay on time, Lisa?
I do have a
We
quick
got one.
question, a follow-up question
go ahead.
to,
Yeah.
I do have a follow-up question. This is Tamika, sorry. When you have somebody that is causing damages, like like normally, what is the process? Like you would do the cease and desist, but how long will it take for them to actually stop producing your work? Because you could still incur further damage. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And,
Okay.
and typically it takes until they're forced to stop, right? You can send your own cease and desist and they're going to keep doing what they're doing. If they're making money off of it, they're going to keep doing it. Then you're going to get an attorney and they're going to send their cease and desist and they may continue to do it. Then the attorney has to take it to court. And then the judge has to determine that they need to stop.
So
Right,
typically
so-
that process could take a little while.
It could take, imagine sending somebody a cease and desist in March of last year.
Right,
And
right.
courts were shut down, right? Right, so but typically, you know, it could take a year or two, but then you throw something like COVID in, it could take 3 or 4 years. You know, because now not only has the courts been closed for a year, but now they got a backlog of a year and they still have to catch up. So again, that's part of the reason why a lot of people don't even bother. They keep trade secrets and they just don't let anybody know how they do what they do because it's hard to enforce. And sometimes it's hard to prove. Like I said, in the last instance, you know, you have to prove that you have been damaged. Yeah, you've been selling your product for 5 years and you make so much a year and now they're selling their product, you know, and you're down 30%. You have to prove that you're down 30% because they're selling that product, right? And guess who you're paying all this time to help you prove that? You're paying some attorney, right, to help you prove and go to court and fight all this time and these months and that, you know, you're paying that attorney all that time. If it takes 3 years, you're paying your attorney to file this and file that and file that claim and file that extension and then, you know, so it can be time consuming and expensive. And again, I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying just think very carefully about what needs to be done and how to protect your product and the likelihood of somebody stealing it and the likelihood of somebody damaging you and your brand and your revenue based on them stealing it. That make sense?
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Yeah,
So
good.
now we come to our test. You got a question, Lisa?
No, I said we got some good questions here.
Yeah, yeah. So now we got a test, ladies. Tamika already knows what's coming. So the test is, I want to know one thing you learned tonight that you did not know before we started this workshop. All right, I'll give you a second to get it together. And you cannot repeat somebody else's answer. All right, so since Tamika has been here before, I'm going to start with her.
Well, thank you for that. A couple of things I did learn. With the question I just asked with the damages, like
Okay.
the length of time and the fees associated with it. I was like, because I didn't know exactly, like if you send the cease and desist, it doesn't necessarily equate to them actually stopping to take the work. And with me doing video content, it is easily reproduced. So that's why I was like, I really need to get some more information for the video lesson plan. So that was my big takeaway from today.
Okay, great. That's a good one. Now, here's what you want to think about. When you talk about videos and putting them on the internet, you want to build in the protection up front. right? There's certain things you can do to your video to kind of, to make it very difficult for people to steal it, right? Now, you know, I don't know all the ways, but when you start talking about producing these videos, make sure that you build that protection in up front. Don't just put it up there and then somebody steal it and you got to figure out how to go after them and how they did it and why they did it. You know, work with those folks who are savvy enough to help you build in those protections, right? There's certain ways you can do that. I got a particular website builder who makes sure that everything that we put on our websites are protected, the videos, the pictures, everything. There's ways they can do it. And I'm not a developer, right? But
right, because YouTube doesn't get it
yeah.
all the time. So you can put like a logo in the back, because I do a lot of video content for my classes. Like I just did a video yesterday. So like I don't publish it, but I was like, I'm not going to publish it. It's only for my students right now. But like when I consult, I can use a video walkthrough when people ask me about, like I just dehydrated something yesterday. So I kind of tweaked the process. So I don't want a lot of people seeing it, but my students, they can only access it because they're paying for the course through the college. So they have access to it because they bought it. So, but when I use it outside of the college, yes, when I use it outside of the college, that's where I run into the hiccups.
Right, right. But you know the tricks. You know the tricks. You have to have your name on it, right? You, again, every precaution to protect it. You can't just throw it up on Facebook and say, oh, somebody stole it.
Right. Right. And it has to be, I'm not sure who else is doing, but just a little nugget, and I'm sorry to say, but it has to be accessible, like for closed captioning, hearing impaired, and things like that. So it's a lot of video content that I'm going through right now that I want perfect before I put it out. Yeah.
Good, good, good. Yeah, everything's not so simple. It sounds simple, but it's not so simple.
Not at all. Can't even use red writing. No, can't.
Well, that's new. I didn't know that. What's red writing?
Like red for like red text. A lot of males are colorblind, so
yeah, I am.
So they can't see red. So if I'm writing in red, they can see it, but the letters kind of will run together, so it's not accessible.
Okay.
For a person that's
so you're just being sensitive to folks like myself.
Yes.
Okay. I thought there was some kind of rule or something on the internet that you can't use red writing. Okay.
Oh, well, not a rule on the internet, but very sensitive to people that are trying to learn. And on the education side, basically Department of Ed was like refrain from using red text.
Oh, I'm glad finally somebody realizes that's a problem. Yeah. I grew up my whole life not being able to read certain things.
Yeah, they said take it out of red. Yeah, and I had a lot of content in my class that was red.
Background, right?
I had to go through eight or 10 classes. I think about 8 classes I had to audit, and I wrote a lot in red. I'm like, here it is in red. No, I had to change every line, and I got a lot of classes that I teach. So
well, yeah. I'm glad somebody finally realized that we're out here.
Refrain from using red text. Colorblind. Yeah.
Got it. So anybody else learn something tonight that they didn't know when they came here? Alicia, anything?
Well, I just learned something about the red text.
You're welcome.
And then also for me, it was for the copywriting to do like a timestamp idea to be able to say if I write something, then I send it to myself so I could, so it can be post-stamped. That was kind of ingenious to me, just a little nugget that I didn't know.
Yeah, I learned that 20 years ago, before the internet. I got a drawer full of ideas. Every time I come up with something, I throw it in an envelope and mail it to myself. Right? So I got a drawer full of those ideas. Some of them I moved forward, and some of them I didn't. But you know, it's just something I've always done ever since somebody told me about it. So thank you. Glad you learned something tonight. And Ashley, anything you can share with us?
Yes.
Oh,
Go ahead, Ashley Newman.
oh. I learned that the creator of Monopoly, the real creator, is from where I'm from, PG County. So that was nice.
Yeah.
Must be something in the water here.
Lizzie McGee, absolutely.
I'm from PG too, Central High School.
Oh, nice. I went to Gwynn Park.
Nice.
I also learned about trade secrets, how you may not want to patent something, so then people won't know what's in your certain product, like Coca-Cola. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Great.
And we have two Ashleys on here, right?
Okay, who's the other Ashley? I missed the other Ashley.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Ashley.
Hi, I'm Ashley Harris. So you said that we cannot piggyback on what somebody else said. So my twin Ashley just said what I was gonna say that I learned. So I'll
Are you
just
from
share
PG
this.
County?
What did you say, James?
Are you from PG County?
No, I am not from PG County. I'm from Anne Arundel County.
Okay.
Yes.
So
But
anything else that you learned?
so when I just want to share this as my comment. When, let's see, Tamika and Alicia, you guys were chatting about the red text color, about not using that because of accessibility, that whole conversation. So it was funny because I was just studying that today myself in the web design world. We have what's called user interface and user experience, and that red text will fall, I believe, under user interface. It's a whole thing about accessibility and colors and just fonts, like the whole scope of it for accessibility purposes. So when Tamika said that, I was like, I was just studying that today. And Alicia piggyback on that too. So.
See, that's what this is all about. Not only can you learn from me, but you can learn from the other folks that are on the call. So that's why we do these.
Exactly.
And
So
it's
thank you,
part
everybody.
of universal design learning. I just did a full class in that through my job, my current position. So yeah, it was eye-opening when I was like red, and I was like, I think I use that a lot. And I looked in one of my classes, and I think I had it on every slide, every page, everything. And I had to literally it took me about a good 2 months just to get it accurate, for it not to be a hindrance to people. And me not knowing that, I was like, I just use red, but you can't do it. So universal design of learning, UDL is what we call it in our education world. So yeah, it's a lot. It's fun stuff, especially during a pandemic. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much,
All right.
Jim. We appreciate all you've done tonight and all you do. I put our website in the chat so that if anybody is interested in more classes, we will be doing more classes, hopefully with Jim here soon. I don't know if you got.
Yep, I'll be back.
Okay, all right.
I got to jump, Lisa. I got a 7 o'clock also.
All right. Thank you
See you
so
later,
much.
Jim.
Take
Thank
care.
you,
Thank
Jim.
you, ladies. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And ladies, if you can please fill out the evaluation when we email it to you, it does help us get future grant money so that we can keep providing free classes like this and free services like our counseling and all that assistance that we do. So Nick, is there anything you need to add?
Yep. I was going to say, definitely check out the upcoming webinars that we have. We've got one coming up on June 11th on self-care, because I know after a year and a half of dealing with the pandemic as a business owner, it's really important. So I think that's going to be a really, really good one. And then our Tuesday chats too. We're going to be starting to have our staff on just to be able to talk about what we do and answer questions for folks who want to learn a little bit more specifically about what we do. Keep an eye out for those webinars as well.
That's going to be a lot about funding too. I wanted to add, so if you're looking for startup funding, it's going to talk a lot about that as well. So,
And if anybody wants to, reach out directly about the different types of services and loans that we have, I have my email in the chat, so feel free to reach out to me.
and so do I. Mhm.
Yep.
And
And
then,
we like each other. You can send it to either one of us. Neither one of us will be offended.
right, either one. So also we have one on Monday coming up. It's small business insurance. So what are your needs, as a small business owner for insurance? So got a question?
Yes. So in regards to that webinar, our small business, Alicia is my partner. We have a general commercial liability insurance and kind of what we're required to have for the state. I didn't know if it would be valuable to still sit in on that webinar just to like hear all the content.
I think it would. I think, and the lady doing it, she's very good. She's been doing it for years. So I think she's a good person to, just kind of ask questions, and anything that comes up or that you think of it, be sure to ask her. So I definitely would. All right, ladies. Well, you have a good evening. I hope to see you again soon.
You'll see me next week, of
All
course.
right.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. See you guys. Have a good night. Good night, Nick.
Bye.
Bye-bye.